All right, so this is video is just an additional exercise about how to use the blending stumps. This is something that you can kind of learn in the process of working on your drawing, but it's good to practice on some other area where you're not so worried about ruining your drawing. You do all this work and then you try something new and then you have to redo it and over again. It can become frustrating. So I have two things here. Circular forms here, and this is a large one clearly, and this is what we've done in a previous assignment where you just trace a circle around, and then you're going to just draw an ellipse down here at the bottom. Okay, so because this is so large, this is going to be, you can do this all with your hand. What I want you to do with this portion of the exercise is to find something small. This is probably about as big as my half of my finger, something that's circular and round but on the smaller end. Even a coin, like a quarter, might work, but that's super small. The reason why we're doing something small like this is because you're going to start using these blending stumps. Your blending stump is basically what your finger does, except it's on a smaller scale. And the more you use the blending stumps, the more you can find advantages to using them. I have a blending stump. I'm just going to grab it real fast. Bear with me for a moment. I have a blending stump here that I've been using, and it already has charcoal on it, and you can kind of lay down medium because it's on there, and it just kind of works out. And you can work it in circles, and you can kind of see that I'm just kind of fading out from one value to another, just like that. Super easy. So you can kind of see where I went from light to dark, somewhat dark, like mid-tone, I suppose. So you're going to practice that on here because you're working small scale. You can also use it here, usually when you're working around the edges and when you're in tight spaces where your fingers is going to smear both sides of the edge and it's not going to be effective. You're just going to go take 2 steps backwards every time you do something. So these little guys help out a lot. And I would, again, go from large to medium to small for very, very small areas because this gets so worked that you really can't get in there, medium for medium-sized areas, and etc. So that's why these exist. That's what they're used to do. So I have this. I'm going to just put in a quick ellipse here. Since I put my ellipse longer on this side, the light is going to be coming from this direction. So what I'm going to do is, you know what? I have everything here but my charcoal. I don't know where that went. I thought I had it down here. Hold on a second. All right. So I have my charcoal here, and when you're drawing a sphere, so I'm just going to work on the small one here. When you're drawing your sphere, most of your core shadow is going to be about right there, right? So I'm just using the side of this, and I'm just putting some charcoal here. And I can probably use that charcoal to smear around this whole thing. And then you're going to have your shadow underneath, and that's going to be about right here. And I'm just trying to go underneath there. So that charcoal I put down might be enough. The other thing I can do is I can put, I'm trying to get this right on the edge. I can put charcoal here on the exterior. As I did before, and just kind of let it fade out. All right, so now let's smear. I'm going to use my finger as much as I can because it's faster. So I'm just going to work it inside of the sphere itself. And that's enough. I have my core shadow, I have my mid-tone, I kind of have my highlight, but I can't get up in there because of my finger's too big, and I'm just going to smear all the other stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to smear underneath. And almost in a matter of moments, I have reflected light. You can kind of see how fast that is. And then I'm going to turn it this way and smear the exterior. I'm trying to keep it on that line as much as I can. I'm just going to kind of fade it out. La, 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 la. Pull it down. Pull it down here. Maybe just try to pull some down here. And I'm just using what's on my finger and just kind of like filling it in. Now I can use my blending stump. So that's would be like your first round whenever you're just trying to establish value structure. It's dark here, it's gonna be dark here, it's dark here. It's gonna be light there, it's gonna be light there. After that, then you can grab this guy, because remember on the edge here, you're gonna have, it's not gonna be super bright. And what I'm just doing, I'm just gonna fill this in. So it's even, and then I'm gonna subtract with my kneaded eraser, and I'm gonna use this guy. This guy's actually effective. The only thing that stinks about this little fella is that when you erase, it leaves a residue, meaning those little like eraser particles, whereas this does not. Not a big deal. So I'm gonna try my kneaded eraser first, and whenever I use my kneaded eraser, I want you to wrap it around, like first you wanna shape it, right? So I'm kind of shaping it to look like my finger. Instead of like dabbing it like that, I like to wrap it around my finger so it becomes an extension of my fingertip, just like so. And then you can start to say, okay, that's where the highlight's gonna be. And then maybe I can just kind of fade out into the rest of the drawing. And so I'm actually mixing with the kneaded eraser a little bit, and that worked. But say I wanted to get it even lighter. So now I'm gonna use this guy here. I'm gonna get in there. And I'm just gonna subtract as much as I can. And then I can grab, I'll grab my medium size and something that's clean. And I'm basically just trying to blend so it doesn't have that hard edge around. I'm just trying to kind of blend it all in so it looks like a slow, gradual shift of light transitioning to medium, transitioning to dark. And again, here, your reflected light's not going to be that bright. So what I'm going to do, and actually I'm going to go back to this guy because it has charcoal on it. But actually, you know what? I want you to pretend as if you don't have that yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some charcoal from here, load this up, and I'm going to bring it on this side, and I'm going to lay it down. Because that's probably the value of the reflected light. It's not going to be bright white. It's not going to be super dark, but you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So now I'm starting to get the volume that I'm trying to achieve, but I have a little bit more control because I'm using this blending stump. And I don't like to introduce this too early, because then everybody starts blending everything with this tiny little tool. It's like tilling a 20-acre farm with a toothpick, you know. So don't use your finger as much as you can, because that's a large version of what this is. Look at the difference between the size of the two. So now I can make this a little bit darker if I want to. So I'm just going to add a little charcoal, use my finger, kind of blend it in a little bit again. I can actually take some charcoal from here and I can add it here as well. I can go that route. And now I'm starting to kind of fan it down. I'm blending it down. I'm just doing little tiny circles, trying to retain that transition of value where it goes dark to light, a slow fade. And then I'm just going to kind of bring it up here, make this even darker here, a little darker there. And my highlight's going to be like right here, but again, it shouldn't be like a perfect outline and shape. It should be a slow transition. Now, because I have this loaded with charcoal, and if I go in here, it's just going to make that slightly darker. It might work to my benefit, it might not. I'm just trying to, actually that kind of worked out. So I'm just trying to make that a nice blend, a soft transition from light to dark. I'm just being really careful. So I'm happy with where this is now at the moment. And in order to make one thing I just want to point out, in order to make this look like there's reflected light, you need a dark value underneath of it to get that sense of contrast, right? And so now I'm going to work on the other side of the edge with this. And so I'm just trying to blend this dark right up to that edge. And I kind of lucked out. The pencil that I used to draw is a 4H. It incised the paper a little bit. I mean, it pushed the paper down. And so whenever I rub charcoal around it, it's almost skips that one section. It creates this white line, almost like a print or an opposite of a print, which is actually helping me to find that edge over and over again. You can even see it where I put the arrow here. Also, graphite and charcoal don't really mix well together, so it's like oil and vinegar, so that could be happening here as well. And I'm just working this around. Again, I'm just kind of making this up as I go, and I think get out of there. I think I might make this darker down here, and I'll probably just like blend this a little bit more here. I just want to make sure that my outline stays put. Now, one more trick I'm going to show you. Say, instead of trying to get charcoal from here and then load up down here, which is fine, you can also take charcoal from here. This is another little trick too. Load this up, and then you can really get a darker value there. And it's almost like your finger, instead of putting charcoal down, trying to smear it around, this might be a faster, more effective way to do that. And you kind of see that I'm making this just a little bit darker of a value than the edge there, just so I get that sense of reflected light. And I'm just going to kind of fade this out, but I can fade this out with my finger at this point because I don't need to do that. And then you see how this looks kind of spotty? I'm going to go in and try to even all of that out just by doing little circles and things like that, and just let it kind of fade on its own. So there's a lot of like soft transitions of value, and that's basically all you're doing, putting value down or charcoal down. You put charcoal down and you move it around, and there's more quantity in other areas and less quantity in other areas. You use this as a way to apply value. So one more thing, if there's an area that you just really needed to make slightly darker, say you wanted to make this darker, you can see what charcoal you have on here and see if it works, or you can take charcoal from something else and just kind of work it on there and make it darker. If you need to make something lighter, use this guy and then go in there and start to subtract a little bit, like so. And you kind of see, that's the residue that I'm talking about. And you might say, oh, I took off too much charcoal. I got to go back in and add value. So you might go back and forth 3 or 4 times until you get that value the way you want it. So these are really good tools. And again, there's a small one for super small spots, spaces that you can't get in there. Super tiny that your finger can't really do anything about. Now, I drew this as well, but you can do most of that with your finger, but then you can use this for the edges. So in the second and third stage of this project, when you're drawing your still life, you're going to be using this quite a bit because there's going to be a lot of nooks and crannies and hard edges and soft edges, and you're ready to kind of focus on one area to get that range of value. All right, so do one of these and submit it in.